Hello, everyone, and welcome to For What It's Nerd. We have not done a live episode of For What It's Nerd since For What It's Nerd first became a thing. And technically, that episode didn't even go live because I lost the VOD. So, hello, welcome to our first official, proper, fully fledged live viewing, live account, live For What It's Nerd event, so to speak. I'm very excited about it, actually. I had always intended eventually to get some live content on For What It's Nerd every now and again, and I think this is a perfect opportunity. Obviously, there's been a lot going on this weekend. There's a lot to discuss. Not even just in Star Wars, though this is primarily about Star Wars. There is other things that's happened this week too that might come up potentially, you know, in random bouts of conversation, but there's a lot to discuss coming out of Star Wars Celebration this week, and I'm very, very excited to get into it. So I don't know where exactly we're going to go with this. I don't know how long exactly this might be, but we are going to discuss a lot of stuff in this episode. Now, as well, I want to say, if you guys find this episode and find the live version of this to be something that you actually enjoy, that you find to be beneficial, that you find is nice every now and again to get some kind of interaction audience-wise, then perhaps we can do it a little bit more. Obviously, For What It's Nerd does have a Twitch channel, but I think we would keep it to YouTube. I don't think we need to go to Twitch for What It's Nerd right now. I think maybe in the future, maybe if we're doing some sort of like non-specific, non-aimed stuff, like I don't know if we were doing some gaming on the channel, like board games, etc., or if we were doing anything of that sort, then maybe that's something we could do on a live on Twitch. But right now we're not kind of looking to go that far. We're kind of trying to keep it to what it is. So I think YouTube is the best place for that. Now, before I go any further, I'm just going to quickly alter the sound levels here because I don't want it to be a case where I'm shouting over the audio. Now, if it has been a problem to this point, I apologize for those listening. Hopefully it's better now. We have a lot to discuss. There's a lot come out of Star Wars Celebration this weekend. We'll try and hit as many points as we can. We might miss some stuff, but that's that's okay. You know, there's a lot to cover, so it's obvious that we're going to miss some stuff. Now, first off, I want to discuss, and this is probably the most important thing for me. I don't have images. I'm sorry, I wasn't that prepared. Maybe in the future, I don't have things that can go, wow, look, and bam, something will show up, because I'm not that high tech. I'm not that prepared. I'm dumb. That was a bit harsh. Still, so what we have first, and I think this is the most important kind of foundational information for me out of Star Wars Celebration, is the new timeline, the new official timeline for all Star Wars media. And that is essentially most of the stuff we already know, you know, Fall of the Jedi, Rise of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, the New Republic, Rise of the First Order. We know all of that. We know all of that. What is interesting is, of course, the High Republic is on there, which we've known about. Obviously, we've known the High Republic for a few years now. But the two before that are very interesting, which is Dawn of the Jedi and the Old Republic. Now, obviously, everyone who knows me well knows that I am a big fan of the Old Republic era. Obviously, the Star Wars Old Republic is a game I play semi-frequently. It's a game that I have a lot of love for. It's a game that really, it didn't expand. How do I put it? It wasn't foundational to my Star Wars, but it was like the next step. It was like one of those things that was really integral to my Star Wars childhood. So it's really nice to see the Old Republic fully be kind of brought back into Star Wars here, to be reintegrated, and especially Dawn of the Jedi. Now, that's obviously going to be very important going forward. There's something else that will be coming up that we'll be discussing as regards that, but it's very nice to see that timeline. It's very exciting because the Old Republic is on there for a reason. They would have left that off if they weren't intending to do anything in that period just yet, but it's on there. They're aware of it. They're trying to do something with it. They might do something with it. They're at least thinking about it. It's there. Very interesting. Now, there isn't any there isn't any product or any kind of there isn't anything in that era just yet, but very exciting. There's nothing being announced in that era, but very exciting to see the Old Republic returning here. Now, I do have a lot of tweets here that I've kind of selected to kind of keep me in the know of what I'm looking at. But first off, let's go through the list. So there was a lot of footage revealed, which sadly I'm not privy to. Mainly, most of the stuff that was there was you know, most of the stuff was only shown to people at Celebration, which I always find to be a little bit grating. Like, at least release it a few days later or something. But sometimes they literally just show stuff at these events, which I get the exclusivity of it. Get there, get to see the stuff, but it's very hard for people who don't get to see it. So some things I kind of will be glossing over. For example, Andor, some stuff was shown, but I don't know the details of it. I haven't seen any details of it. And on top of that, Andor doesn't really have much news coming out about it right now. So we won't be touching on Andor too much in this one. Besides, I've already done like a 2.5 hour episode on Andor when it was first coming out. So if you want to watch anything about Andor, discussion about Andor, etc., etc., I have a few for What It's Nerd videos already on that. So the next one, the important one for me, this is a big one. Acolyte. Acolyte is very, very exciting. I think this is probably my sort of second most anticipated project. I mean, there's one that we'll be discussing that is probably my most anticipated, but Acolyte is very up there. Obviously, it's set in the High Republic, which is very exciting in and of itself, but we kind of got a more of an idea of what it's going to be about. Now, I think it's Leslie, is it Headland? I think that's her surname, their surname. I'm not 100% on that right now, but Leslie, the showrunner essentially for Acolyte, has pitched it as Frozen meets Kill Bill. Now, I don't exactly know what that means, but it's very interesting, and I'm interested to see how that pans out in a sense. But it's very exciting to see us going to the High Republic era in live action. What's even more interesting than that is that for this, we're seeing our first character, well, not first, but one of our first characters from the High. How do I put this? I could be technically wrong with this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Our first character from literature to screen, because we've seen characters from comic to screen, but not from book to screen, as far as I remember, apart from ones that were made for like tie-ins to the movie, but that was arguably the other way around. They were made for the movie and then made into a book. But anyway, basically, we are getting one of our first characters from book to screen, and that is, I mean, Thrawn's technically book to screen, but that's different because that's Legends. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is we'll be getting our first character from the High Republic coming into an actual live-action show. I'm just gonna get to the end of what I'm trying to say. Venestra Rowe is coming to the Acolyte. Now, this is very interesting. And this is my big point about the Acolyte. This is very interesting because it means two things. Venestra Rowe survives Phase 3 of the High Republic, which is very interesting in and of itself because that kind of undercuts any tension they want to do with Venestra, which I'm assuming they probably won't do too much with that now. In my opinion, that's how I would do it. But, woo, Star Wars, welcome in, Finn. We're just discussing the Acolyte right now. So the Acolyte, yes, so Venestra. Venestra, I personally wouldn't then go and I wouldn't then go and make a book around her. I would use her as an ancillary character for Phase 3, but very exciting to see her all the same coming to live action. Now, saying that, interesting fact because she is a Mirialan, the green-skinned race like that of Luminara and Dooley and Barriss Offee. I'm very excited. We need more sequel content. We do, Finn. We will get to talking about sequel content very shortly. We're just we're going down the list right now. We're on Acolyte. But yes, very exciting news about Daisy Ridley. So Venestra, I keep saying her name. I'm sorry. I'm going to get to actually just explaining what I was going to say. Miri Allen, Luminara and Dooley, Barriss Offee. I'm following my own train of thought here. She, by the time of so she was born in 24 ABY. So 248. I'm getting all mixed up here. 248 ABY, which means that by the time of the High Republic, which is set 100 years before the Battle of Yavin, she will be 148. Which is interesting because as of right now, we have not known Mirialans to live that long. And from the screen we saw of Venestra in this show, she still looks relatively fit, let's say. Relatively capable, let's say. And that was jarring for me, honestly, because I personally see Mirialans as like the same lifespan as humans. I always saw Luminara and Dooley as in her sort of 50s, that sort of range. But now it looks like potentially she could have been in that show, in the Clone Wars, etc. She could be like 100 or something like that. Easy. So it's very interesting. I'm interested to see what the canon explanation is for that. But it's very weird to have a species that has existed in Star Wars for like 20 years. Even longer now, I think, and it's suddenly changed in that way, or perceptionally changed, because we've never had a sort of definition on it. But it's still interesting. It's still sort of peculiar, should we say? So that's my thing about the Acolyte. Now, I can't pronounce his surname, but Jonas, who plays Chewbacca, Sutamo, is that it? I don't know how to pronounce it. But he is going to be playing a Wookiee Jedi in this as well. Now, one thing that's kind of grating me about that is it's a new Wookiee Jedi. It's not one we've seen before. More Mirialans, more money. I mean, arguably not, because I don't think many people like Mirialans, but I do. I love them. They're one of my favorite species in Star Wars. What was I going to say? Yeah, so new Wookiee character. It's not a Wookiee character we've seen before as far as what we've heard. Now, they're literally green like money. I know what you meant. But it's grating to me because the way they're touting it is if it's the first ever Wookiee Jedi, as if there hasn't been a number of Wookiee Jedi, both in Legends and in canon. I understand that it's the first kind of really put to screen. I get it. It's very exciting, but the implied ignorance there of like these other characters always puts me off slightly, because it feels like eventually you're going to get people who don't really know what they're doing with a property in that era or this world that's been built up, and they kind of they damage something or otherwise hinder something, and we'll talk about a little bit about that with another project a little bit later on. Now, that's sort of my Acolyte discussion. I don't really have much else to say about Acolyte. I didn't see any footage. I didn't see anything really at all. I've only heard bits and pieces. Those were my two important things to discuss. Now, Mandalorian. It's a little bit of controversy around this one. Now, because they showed episode 23, sorry, chapter 23, episode 7, at Celebration. They showed the entire episode. Now, as you guys can imagine, leaks galore have been coming out. I've seen a few. I haven't looked for more because I'm scared that I'm going to spoil a full episode for myself. But, and this is a spoiler warning, this is a big ass spoiler warning. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. I am now going to discuss the spoilers. I'm going to discuss the spoilers of episode 7 of season 3 of Mandalorian that I have heard. If you are not interested in that, mute for like 2 minutes. 2 minutes, we'll discuss it, and then we'll come back. But basically, if you're not, can't believe they brought back Jar Jar, I know, ridiculous. Can't believe they did it. Essentially, real quick, I'll try and keep it in the 2 minutes so that everyone can like kind of come back if they want to. The episode opens with Ilia Kane, the Imperial defector. She sends a call to Gideon, telling him what's going on with the New Republic. At this point, you switch to Gideon. Gideon goes to meet with a Shadow Council. The Shadow Council includes Brendol Hux, who is General Hux's father. You have Admiral Pelion, Thrawn's second in command. They discuss why Thrawn isn't there, and they talk about, I think, part of the cloning project. So it's akin to that, basically. It's akin to that. And then that's basically all I know right now. That's all I know, but that's the beginning of next episode. That's the beginning of next episode. They're setting up what we're going to be discussing with Ahsoka. Very exciting stuff, but I'm kind of sad that I didn't get to live that myself first. I am sad about that. So I'm excited to obviously see the episode. I think this will be very exciting. I think what they're doing going forward is very exciting with the Mandoverse in general. But I am slightly disappointed that they did what they did there. I feel like it kind of cheapened it for everyone who wasn't at Celebration. Otherwise, Mandalorian is very exciting. Obviously, it's got 2 episodes left this season. How could you spoil us? Shaking my head. I did shout very loudly, spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. Also, guys, by the way, whilst we are live, I'm gonna shamelessly plug myself here. Leave a like on the video. It does really help the video along. That's all I'm gonna say on that one. I won't say that again, so don't worry. Mandalorian, yes. So Mando is getting a movie. Well, not just Mando, but the Mandoverse. So the idea is, I'm not sure how this will go specifically, but I'm not sure like when. I think it's 6 or 7 years out there they're alluding to, but the idea is that Mandoverse will end with a movie. Now, we don't know whether that movie is going to air on like Disney Plus and be like a Disney Plus exclusive movie, or we don't know whether it's going to go to cinemas. We don't know that yet. It's obviously still a while out, but essentially what I think is going to happen is you're probably going to see Mando season 3 wrap up. We're going to have Ahsoka then, which we will talk about in a minute. You're going to have Skeleton Crew as well. Those two, and then maybe like another season of Mando. I don't think we'll get another Boba Fett season personally, but maybe another Boba Fett season. And then potentially we'll have another season of Ahsoka. And I think at that point, we'll generally be at the point where you'll see the Mandoverse end with this big movie. I imagine it's probably going to be called something like Heir to the Empire, or something akin to that, because that's been alluded to as kind of the thing. Which again we're going to discuss in a second, but very exciting stuff. Very exciting stuff. I am concerned about the movie only because I mean, it's going to be out at that point, so it won't matter, and it'll finish off the Mandoverse, so again, it won't matter. But shows to movies, as a thing has generally went badly in the past because certain fans are having a meltdown. I mean, yes, they always do. But I do think that sometimes when you, if this isn't released as a Disney Plus movie, that's my concern. Because if it was Disney Plus that this releases on, then the likelihood is it'll have a lot of connectivity, it'll be interesting, it'll continue like smoothly the storylines from the show. But if it is a cinematic release, I feel like you will have an issue in which they feel like they have to, you know, advertise and give everything out to the audience. They have to like teach everything to the audience of those people who didn't go into the, you know, haven't watched all the Mando stuff. And at that point, you can potentially lose time with interesting storyline because you have to retread old storyline, so to speak. I'm very concerned about that. And I'm also concerned because this is Dave Filoni's live action directing debut. Don't get me wrong, I think Dave Filoni has a lot of good to offer Star Wars. I think he has already offered a lot of good to Star Wars. But Dave has sometimes shown that he does not know how to cooperate with a wider universe beyond his own stuff. And I'm concerned that when you put something to screen, a big screen that doesn't necessarily fit with everything else, you could have an issue. That's me, and maybe that's a little bit too unfair, but you know, there you go. Do they really want Disney to adapt Heir to the Empire and then complain when they adapt EU products? Yeah, well, I can't say too much about that because the thing is, frankly, these people are going to dislike whatever they dislike constantly, consecutively, and without discrimination, which is ironic because that's what most of this is about. But you know what I mean. Yeah, I think that's the most on Mandalorian. Obviously, a lot of people have divided on Mandalorian this season. Personally, I've really been enjoying it. It's a good mesh of season 1 and season 2. I think season 3 is the perfect kind of middle ground where you have story, you have a grand adventure in there, but you also have a sort of low stakes storylines at the same time. Now, talking about low stakes, we will now switch across to Skeleton Crew because we're already like we've got so much to discuss, and I feel like we're already behind. But Skeleton Crew, this is important. Skeleton Crew is going to be a show with Jude Law's character and a child cast. Well, like child as in alien children, etc. as well. Skeleton Crew. That's its name. Skeleton Crew, obviously the idea with this one being that they want to have a crew of children trying to make an adventure in the galaxy, but they realize that they're kind of out of their depth. It's very reminiscent to me of Cavan Scott's Adventures in Wild Space books, which are really great as like children's books go. Very intriguing. So if you haven't read those, have a look at those. They're very good. There's about 4 or 5 of them. So Cavan Scott doesn't write all of them, sorry. There is also Tom, I forget his surname right now. It's very close to Hiddleston, actually, I think. But basically, there's a guy who writes like every other one. But Cavan Scott is the one I remember off the top of my head. But they're really interesting, and I'd love to see something akin to that in Skeleton Crew. Tom Holland? No, it's not Tom Holland. What I will say is that Jude Law's character in Skeleton Crew is apparently a Jedi. Now, does everyone have to have a Jedi in their show? Like, don't get me wrong, I love Jedi. Jedi's actually where I prefer the storyline to go. I just feel like seeing all these Jedi are rare and stuff, and then having a character be a Jedi. Now, it's not confirmed. I mean, obviously, it looks like it is from apparently the footage that they saw at Celebration, but it doesn't necessarily mean he is a Jedi. He could be Force sensitive, but not a Jedi, you know, any sort of explanation. He could in fact be faking it somehow. You know, there's characters like that. Like, for example, in Star Wars Hunters, the game that's coming out eventually sometime, maybe in the next century, for Switch, Android, and iPhone, they have a character that's essentially a robot Jedi, a droid Jedi, and he uses technology to emulate the Force, so to speak. So there's ways that you could do something that's Jedi-esque or Jedi rip-off, so to speak, that isn't necessarily an actual Jedi. But either way, it's very interesting. It'll be interesting to see if he's the good guy, who's the bad guy, if he turns out to be the bad guy. I mean, Jude Law has played the sort of stealthy good guy before, so to speak. He's turned into that kind of character before, so that's something that you could see. The stealthy bad guy, sorry, the good guy who starts like in Captain Marvel is what I'm trying to say. He like, what's the word? The secret protagonist, the secret antagonist, basically. But yeah, there's not much more to say about that skeleton crew other than I think it's an interesting concept. It's obviously part of the Mandoverse. We'll see where that goes, but I don't see it being anything huge. If there's going to be, I don't see it being that much. I don't see there being much going on there. Ahsoka, now this is the big one. This is probably the biggest hit to come out of Star Wars Celebration. Obviously, it's the big trailer that everyone saw. It's very important, very exciting. I think it's probably going to really, really, it feels like Star Wars in a big way. It feels like a real epic. It feels like there's going to be a lot of excitement, a lot of revelation, a lot of new characters in this, a lot of old characters in this. I think it's it's the perfect like dichotomy of like new and old, and I think it's going to be very exciting to see. Now, of course, in the trailer we saw the Ghost Crew, most of the Ghost Crew. We saw two new dark side individuals, Balin and Shin. We saw Thrawn, the back of Thrawn's head. We saw Morgan Elsbeth. What else do we see? Did we see anyone else? I don't think so off the top of my head. I don't think Mon Mothma. That's it. Yeah. So this is obviously looking to be, again, like I say, a big epic piece, at least from the trailer, at least from what we've seen. Hugh Yang as well. Hugh Yang returns, which is the lightsaber maker from the Clone Wars. Very excited to see him back. Very excited to see what he is doing in this piece. Now, one thing that has been like one of the biggest pieces of discussion around Ahsoka is who is going to play Thrawn. Now, we can confirm this has been confirmed. It was official. It's done. It's dusted. Lars Mikkelsen is playing Thrawn. So Thrawn will have his original voice from Rebels. Jared Leto as Thrawn. Somehow I think no. Thrawn is going to be played by his original actor, which is very exciting. It's funny because it's the only character who has been, it's the only person who's been retained by his original actor. Like, I understand for the other characters, it doesn't necessarily make sense to have the same actor, but in this case, I think it really does. Lars will be able to really portray Thrawn in the best way possible. I'm very excited to see that portrayal. Very excited to hear that crisp Thrawn voice again. That is the essence of Thrawn, that meticulous, planned speech delivery, like very important to Thrawn's character. So I understand why they went with Lars for live action. Now, as well, interesting is that Balin and Shin, the two new characters, the new dark side users, apparently, from what I remember being said, now this might be wrong, Balin seems to be a wayward Jedi. The argument is, a lot of people are suggesting that this is the I always get this name wrong, so I'm going to say it. I could be wrong in pronunciation. Someone can correct me if I got it wrong. But essentially, Balin will play the part of Jorah Sabaoth. Yes, I'm sure it's Sabaoth. From the Heir to the Empire story from Legends. He will essentially be the new Jorah Sabaoth. It'd be interesting to see what that's about, though, because obviously, well, as far as we're aware, he's not a clone. He could be a clone of someone we don't yet know, or some kind of weird cloning advancement, so to speak. But interesting, to say the least. Now, as well as that, Mon Mothma being in the piece actually is very important. Now, because if Mon Mothma weren't there, I would say this is a very tight-knit story. But this suggests this is a full-on, they're fighting with the Republic in at least one sector or at least one area, because if Hero's being brought in as a general of the Republic and the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic is involved, that suggests a more wide-spanning story than we might have first thought from Ahsoka. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be huge. I'm not saying it's going to be galaxy-wide, but I'm saying it seems like the scope of Ahsoka is a lot larger than we first thought. It seems that way from like the way this is built and the way the Mandoverse is kind of going. It's going to be very interesting to see if Mon Mothma starts to show up more or in, you know, a sort of bigger way in the Mandoverse stuff. I'm very excited to see that. I'm very excited to see where that's going. It looks like this show is shaping up to be something very exciting. I could talk about this Ahsoka stuff all day, how it made me feel, how excited I am, but we have so much else to cover. So we'll leave it there for now, but I'm very happy with how Ahsoka is shaping up. Next on the list, Jedi origin film from James Mangold. Now, I'm not, again, I've forgotten what James is known for. I've got to apologize on that one. But the Jedi origin film, this is very exciting. Now, Dawn of the Jedi, the comic series surrounding that concept was very interesting and had a lot of interesting concepts, a lot of things going on in there, especially regarding the Rakata, which were an ancient race, which was name dropped in Andor, by the way, guys. Do not forget that. I'm interested to see what happens in Dawn of the Jedi. It's a movie that's set 25,000 years before the sort of original timeline, before the original trilogy. So it's going to have a lot of room to play. It can do something very different. There's no repercussions, really speaking. It's like starting anew, basically. And I'm very excited. I can't wait to see what they do with that. I hope they explore. I really hope they explore the thing that I would want them to do, even though it's Dawn of the Jedi. I'd like to see them deal with the sort of Dark Jedi schism from the Jedi and the creation of the Sith. I think that would be an incredible storyline, an incredible point to contact with, a very interesting idea to explore in live action. We've never really had that era, not even really in a game or anything like that. I mean, the most we've had is some, we've had like, you know, stories in that era. We've obviously had like comic books and, you know, books in that era, but having something that is so important to what Star Wars becomes, like later in the timeline, and having it be like, let's do something big with that. Like, I really am excited for that. It feels like, I know it sounds silly, maybe a bad comparison. Some people might dislike it. Maybe it's just because it's on the top of my head because I watched it last night. It feels like it would be something similar to The Eternals as a movie, as a concept. I'm not saying it necessarily has to be the same type of movie. I'm just saying the idea of having a group of Jedi that you follow and some diverge, essentially. I think that could be a very interesting idea to follow and to see how those characters deal with it, to see these dark Jedi fall off the path and discover, essentially, Korriban and begin the Sith, and that's kind of the movie. The issue is that these Jedi have like spawned off, or even deal with, which is something that's kind of dealt with in the Star Wars: The Old Republic game. This won't happen, of course, but I would love to see them sort of deal with the schism of the Force users on Tython, deal with characters like in Star Wars, it's Rajavari, who separates from the Jedi and essentially starts an army to fight against the Jedi on Tython. I would love to see something akin to that. That would be really cool, like these epic sweeping Jedi battles on Tython, etc. That could be very interesting. Now, again, that's unlikely to come to pass, but Tython is being used a lot in Star Wars more recently, so it's not, never say never, never say never. Another, and this is the one that Finn was talking about earlier, Finn in chat, another movie, the last of the movies to be announced, like that are newly announced, is the new Jedi Order film. This is the movie that will have Rey at its center. It'll be set 15 years after Rise of Skywalker. So like we've had 5 years now, so it will be akin to like 10 years in the future from now, if that makes sense. I know that sounds weird to say it like that, but you know what I mean. If we were to have timeline accuracy to the character, the actor ages, so to speak. So Rey is going to be the leader of this movie. She is going to be at this point the leader of a Jedi Order. She will be, or thereabouts, she'll be a master, likely have some apprentices or an apprentice, and really the galaxy is going to look a lot different at this point. I'm very interested to see what this is about, see what's going to go on with that. Obviously we don't have any details, really speaking. We don't know who else is even going to return, if anyone. It could just be her. But what I personally would really like to see is a master and their Padawan. I think we've not really I mean, even in the prequels we really didn't get that, because most of the time that we saw in, like, for example, Attack of the Clones, yes, Anakin was a Padawan, yes, Obi-Wan was his master, but they were split. I think it'd be a really great idea to have a master and Padawan kind of, not necessarily buddy cop, but something akin to that, where they're trying to, you know, they're somehow bringing an order together, they're somehow working on this thing that's like meant to be very important to the Jedi Order going forward, essentially kind of cultivating the Jedi Order that way. Now, again, that's all I really have to say on that one. We don't have much to say on this movie right now, but it's very exciting. I also will say that this is something that I've been wanting for a while, because I feel like this Star Wars has been too stuck in the past, so to speak. Not necessarily just the past as in like, not just as in like, oh, we must do stuff surrounding the original trilogy, but also stuck in the past in the sense of like the High Republic is a past era. You know, everything that's happening is already gone, so to speak. It's very nice to see a franchise moving forward as well, if you know what I mean. So I like having this stuff in the past. I think some of my favorite stuff is from the past. Like the High Republic books are really polished, but it's also nice to know that the franchise has legs going forward, if that makes sense. You know, people rag on the MCU a lot, but at least the MCU, even when it deals with stuff in the past, it's still moving forward. You still don't know what's going to happen because they're in the present, so to speak. That's something we haven't had in the Star Wars for a while. I think it'd be very exciting to see it come back with Rey's sequel to the sequel trilogy. One other announcement that we did get, I forgot to say about this, Tales of the Jedi will be getting a season 2. Now, I will kind of re-say everything I said about Dave Filoni. I'm concerned that when he has too much of a reign on things, he gets, and too wide of a scope on things, he gets to start messing with canon books and canon comics. That really riles me, because as someone who, funnily enough, has a lot of, you know, comics and books about Star Wars that are canon, he's not happy when they get retconned, because he reads them. So, you know, that's kind of a big thing for me. But yes, I agree, Finn. Sequel era content is something that needs to be expanded upon, especially like moving forward, not just around those 3 movies. But yeah, so Tales of the Jedi is getting a season 2. I hope it follows different Jedi. I'd like to see them do Jedi that don't really get much time. Like Dooku is a really good example. He doesn't really get much time in the movies, or even in Clone Wars, really. I would like to see them do, I don't want to see, I really hope he doesn't do 3 more Ahsoka episodes and then another Jedi. I want these 2, like, I want this to be 2 of the Jedi, give them 3 episodes each. Like, for example, do 3 on Shakti, and do, even if you did do 3 on like Luminara and Barriss, for example, that would be a really interesting set of episodes. Obviously, there could be other characters, Mace Windu, Plo Koon, Saesee Tiin, Coyote-Mundi, you know, even Yoda, like just before Phantom Menace would be an interesting concept, and see what he's doing in that time. There's Jedi that you could do from earlier. You could, but I don't feel like Dave is really going to touch High Republic, to be honest. But you could. There's other characters. There's so many Jedi. I feel like let's not minimalize it to just Ahsoka again. I feel like Ahsoka has her piece of the Star Wars universe right now. Let's not give her too much all at once. I like Ahsoka, I do, but I think sometimes she can be a bit much on the kind of Star Wars plate, so to speak, now. With that said, we will discuss High Republic a little bit more in detail. Now, I am slightly behind on the High Republic, and by that I mean a whole phase behind, because I'm still on phase 1. This is the Jedi Season 2, aka Ahsoka Season 0. I really hope not. I really hope not. So High Republic Phase 3 will begin October 2023. So I still have time, guys. I still have time to catch up. I can do it. It's set 1 year after the end of Phase 1. I won't spoil it in case people haven't got to the end of Phase 1, but there you go. Wave 1 of Phase 3 will end in March 2024, and the High Republic Publishing Initiative will conclude in spring 2025, which means that by spring 2025, basically the High Republic story, as the initiative itself, is done. Which begs the question, by 2025, do we get a new initiative? Are they already working on that? Do they already have plans? If so, is it the Old Republic? Because that's the only other era that's kind of mentioned on there that hasn't really got anything going on for it right now. And if it is, what does that mean for the Old Republic? And if it isn't, are they going back to doing more tie-in books and filler books and books that fit into between movies and projects? Very excited to see what they do there. I personally would like to see them do another project, another big project. And it was very exciting in this time where Star Wars was kind of quiet to have this big initiative of stories. I think I would like to see more of that. The High Republic, not cinematic universe, but literature universe, so to speak, was very interesting, and I'd like to see more of it. Now, I don't really have much more to say on that per se, because otherwise we're getting spoiler territory, and they haven't done Phase 2, so I haven't spoken about Phase 2 too much, so I don't want to go into details, but it's very interesting to hear that. I'm excited to see what content comes out next regarding literature. There is some other literature on the way as well. For example, from a certain point of view book for Return of the Jedi, which turns 40 soon, which is very exciting. That will also be returning to theaters, by the way. Very exciting as well. I don't know where exactly. Look it up. But there will be some interesting stories in there. One that I found interesting is Return of the Jedi in theater is going to be great. It is. It's very exciting. It's a very exciting thought to have that back in cinema. I mean, obviously, I never went when it first released in cinema, but it would be interesting to see it in cinema. It's a movie that has atmosphere, so I think a cinema would really add to that. What am I going to say? What was I going to say? From a certain point of view, this is an interesting one, guys. General Pride is getting a story from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi. If you guys are interested in Pride, I think Pride was a very interesting character. He was also in Shadow of the Sith. If you're interested in seeing more of him, he will be in one of the short stories from this book. There will also be one from Cy Snootles, so that's the kind of range of characters we're getting in this book. Now, a quick gloss over. I'm not going to go into too many details because it was a gameplay trailer, and of course we leave most of the gaming stuff here for Peralta's place, but the final trailer for Star Wars Jedi Survivor released today, and it looks interesting. I will say, I'm not going to go into too many details, like I said, but it looks interesting. One of the big interesting points is that Coruscant is obviously a big place in this game. We saw that in one of the trailers anyway, but what's interesting is that it's going to be pretty much fully explorable. So it's going to be interesting to see what Coruscant looks like as a person going into it. That's all I really want to say on that. I don't want to go into too many details. I don't think it's a game that I think should be discussed too much. I think it's a game that people should be able to just go and experience. And I think too many people are talking about the game already, and I think it's going to ruin it for some people. So I'm not going to go into too many details. And because this is a channel that doesn't really deal with gaming, that is, of course, Peralta's Place's kind of sphere, so to speak. This is for what it's nerd, so we're going to keep that out of here. But very interesting little tidbit I suppose is worth mentioning whilst we're here. Now, that is pretty much it for Star Wars Celebration. guys, I'm very excited for all of this. Ahsoka is, of course, the next project we're getting. And yeah, it's not long now. It's really not long. August, it's around the corner. And we still have Mando episode 7 and 8 before then. So Star Wars content is on the rise once again. We also have Jedi Survivor at the end of this month. Very excited. Can't wait to see more. This actually was pretty concise. I'm pretty happy with how quickly we managed to get through that. Not quickly in a bad way, but how succinct we managed to do with that. I'm very excited for all of this. I can't wait to see what comes from Star Wars next, where we're going with Star Wars. It looks like it's going to be a great ride. I hope you guys are excited as I am. But yeah, I think this is going to be a great time for Star Wars. Probably one of the best times since Star Wars was reinvigorated itself. Jedi Survivor is going to be litty, to use your words, Finn. Yeah. So guys, thank you so much for watching. That's pretty much the roundup. That's pretty much the news coming out of Star Wars Celebration that we are privy to. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. Live. Signing off. It's been Peralta. It was really embarrassing, I'm sorry.